So how did you first get involved with wrestling, Paul?
Well, like all good Jew boys, I took my bar mitzvah money and invested it in something, and this time it happened to be a camera and some photo equipment to develop the film. And I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I always wanted to be behind the scenes. You know the old actors adage of all I want to do is direct. So I wanted to get on the inside of the business,
Mm-hmm.
and I used my camera to BS my way inside Madison Square Garden as a photographer, and from there started peddling my pictures to the wrestling magazines, and from there started to take over wrestling magazines, and started to know everybody from within the business, because I just never wanted to be on the outside of it. I just never wanted to be one of many. I always wanted to be on the inside presenting the show. I just never had the patience to sit in the audience and watch a show.
Right. So what was your big break then? What photograph or moment caught the eye that started everything going for you?
I took a picture of Vince McMahon Sr., Vincent James McMahon, who was the promoter at the time of Madison Square Garden, standing in the hallway with Andre the Giant, because I used to use 400 ASA film. This was way before digital.
Sure.
And it was very, very fast film. You didn't need flash with it. So as I'm walking down the hallway about to take a right to go out to the ring to cover the matches, Vince Sr. is in the hallway with Andre the Giant. So because I had this fast film, I had the camera down low, which actually made Andre look even more massive than he actually was. And just started and took 36 pictures, hoping I'd get one really good one out of it. I happened to get 3 really good ones out of it. I developed the pictures. I had a photo release drawn up, and the next month I gave it to Vince McMahon Sr. And young man, you're very entrepreneurial. Are you in school? And at the time, I was in junior high school. But I looked older and I had a deeper voice. And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He goes, "So you're working your way through school?" And my answer was, "Well, I'm trying to." And because I wasn't going to tell him I'm in high school, I don't think I'm in college. And he folded up a $50 bill, Vegas style, and he shook my hand and he goes, "Oh, contribute to your transportation fund for coming down to the garden and throw some books of your education. And the next month, bring me a couple more pictures and we'll do business this way." So for the next garden shows throughout his life, I would go and bring Vince Sr. some pictures, and to which he'd give me $50 per show.
Huh.
And I'd spend 30 seconds with the man and get away from him, because I knew not to overstay my welcome or get busted for being a teenager. From there, I just started BSing my way into getting covers of magazines and eventually taking over wrestling magazines, for which I had now a platform that actually did get me a press pass into events all around the world.
So then which is the first wrestler, for those who may not know, that really took you on and you became their wise man and things took off from there, Paul?
You mean as a performer?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Well, I mean, as a performer, I got to know all the power brokers,
Yes.
like Dusty Rhodes, Cody Rhodes' father.
Yep.
As a photographer, I snuck into production meetings that Dusty Rhodes was running when he was the opposition to WWE down south with Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA and WCW. And I got called out of the room by Dusty, and he asked me what I was doing there. When I told him I'm there to learn from him, he actually let me go back into the meeting. And by the time 3 or 4 other meetings took place every other week, I ended up in the front row learning from Dusty Rhodes. So once I knew all the power brokers, it was easy as a talent at 21 years old breaking in to get put with either big stars or future big stars that I could then learn from, and rise up the cards with.
So when did Studio 54 come into play? How the hell did that happen, Paul?
I was 19 years old.
Awesome.
And there was a charity event at Studio 54 And I called the press agent for it, said, listen, I know a bunch of wrestlers on national TV. And this was during the time of the first WrestleMania, which had all the publicity in the world because of Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. And I said, I could bring some nationally televised wrestlers down to Studio 54, and I could arrange for at least one cover of a magazine, if not three. You just got to let me in the door with my camera. And because it was a charity event and a lot of media was there, they let me in. As luck would have it, on this night, the house photographer at Studio 54 was drunk off of his ass. And he started throwing vodka bottles at the bartenders, one of whom, by the way, was Christopher Maloney, who went on to be one of the biggest television stars of all time.
Sure. Okay.
And I was standing next to a gentleman named Worsham Rudd, who was the director of Studio 54. And this was like Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca. This guy had run nightclubs in New York dating back to Regine's and the Copacabana, and now he's running Studio 54. And I see the security tackle the house photographer and throw him out the door. And I watched this guy get thrown out, and I looked over at Rudd and said, isn't that your house photographer? And he says, well, he was. And I said, well, don't you need a new house photographer? And he says, well, I do. And I said, well, I'm volunteering for the job. And I got hired on the spot. And then one thing leads to another, and I become an in-house publicist. And one thing leads to another, and I start producing and promoting Friday nights at Studio 54.
Oh, my
all 19 years old. And with no experience except the experience that I'm getting on the job. But what better experience and what better thing to have on your resume than learning as you go along.
So the Heyman hustle began as a teenager. Is basically what I'm picking up.
Oh, I was hustling just coming out of the womb.
See, we're working. If you haven't realized, we're working the edges of a Hall of Fame speech here, Paul. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that we can work. We can work part of this in and then move our way through. But I'm fascinated by the Studio 54 part of this thing here. Give me a good story that you're willing to tell from back in that day. Matt. What do you got?
The old expression about Studio 54 is those who claim to remember being at Studio 54 obviously never went. There are a lot of stories of which the statute of limitations have run out now.
I love that.
It's
so much celebrity. You got a good celebrity sightings that jumps out at you from the heyday.
There is, and I'm going to disappoint you now terribly, I'm sure. The one thing I really hate is people who gossip. Even when I watch people tell stories, and it's like, oh, well, why would you ever tell that story? Isn't that something personal? And people that were celebrities that were coming to Studio 54 that ended up on my camera reel, at least, were there to have a good time and enjoy themselves. And if enjoying themselves, they did something scandalous or crazy, even though it's back in 1985 and most of them are dead now, for me to gossip about them, one, most of the stories no one would actually ever truly believe. You're going to think I'm embellishing them or exaggerating them. Two, here's what I can tell you about Studio 54 back in 1985. Forget the Playboy Mansion. This thing was like Caligula. It was like Roman times. It was a nonstop 24/7, 365 orgy that allegedly closed its doors at 4 o'clock in the morning was last call, and the party really started around 4:45.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.